Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti. Today, we are going to discuss, as we always do, issues that impact us in our daily lives. Whether we are in India, whether we are in America, it affects us. We are talking about the world's two most prominent democracies, India and the United States. We are residents, or we have been residents of both places. So we have a unique perspective to discuss things from both sides of the aisle. We will talk about issues today which relates to Indo-American relationships, business prospects. Ever since India started the liberalization program in 1991, what have we done? How have we achieved? What needs to be done? The second element that we will talk about is the energy sector. If you have seen the news these days, the oil prices in India is shooting up. It is likely to cross globally perhaps $100 a barrel. It has a very negative impact on the balance of payments of India, as well as the exchange crisis that has brought about. So we have people in our panel today who would be very happy to share their experience, their expertise on this matter. We will begin this program today with the energy needs of India. The energy part, if you have followed, recently International Solar Alliance was formed. It has given the statement that one solar, one world, one grid, and one sun. This perhaps comes closest to the Indian philosophy of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. Think about it. 10 out of 15 OPEC members are already part of ISI. And as a result of which, this is going to open up a different vista in energy consumption, supply, and consumption. I have the pleasure of welcoming today a very old friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Rajiv Khanna. He's the president of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. He's a very prominent lawyer, business lawyer. So welcome, Rajiv, to the program today. Thank you. And along with him, we have Navneet Trivedi. Navneet Trivedi runs a company. He founded a company called Vrinda Inc. Vrinda is his daughter's name, after whom the name of the company was established. Navneet is a very qualified engineer from IIT Powai. He has done his engineering in alternate energy, and he's also done energy program in Columbia University. So we will begin the conversation today with Navneet telling us about what's happening in the energy arena. The whole world is talking about it. What are the imperatives of energy right now? It is happening about clean energy, protection of the planet, alternate usage of fossil oil, and alternate energy of wind power, and what have you. So Navneet, give your perspective of how did you end up forming this company and your cross-border experience of working in India for many years and in this field in the United States. So you could contribute, and I would like you to convey to the audience here is that what India needs to do and why solar innovations have not happened to the extent that it ought to have happened in India.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I would like to say that when we are looking at energy, and I would qualify, I'm a electrical engineer, so I worked on the utility side because energy is a wide kind of, when it kind of runs from oil and gas to electricity. So I'm more kind of focused on electricity. What we are seeing is a profound transformation in the utility industry and energy chain, as you can see. And the change is, the costs of technologies which are declining. So it's a very interesting that solar since 1978 is declined 28% per year, the cost of solar. And coupled with batteries, which are another kind of game changer, what is happening that we are seeing phenomenal reduction in the costs. So we started at $1,000 per kilowatt hour in 2010. Today the batteries are $200 per kilowatt hour. What happens that just to make an electron of electricity, as normally like common people will know, it's a a unit of electricity, but a lot of things goes behind making electricity which comes to your home, and you need all components, and I don't want to go into technical details of that, but basically you need something which can respond very fast, which can store. So storage is playing big role. So what is happening, that cost of renewable technologies are coming down, the electrification in the electric vehicle technologies are becoming more kind of mature, and as a result of that, it is changing the way we interact with grid as a customer. So what we call it in the definition is prosumer. So you are not a consumer anymore, you are becoming a producer and consumer at the same time. So the same customer which used to consume electricity is now becoming more, he can generate also. So essentially what I mean to say is that you don't need probably the grid the way you needed earlier, because only one way you use electricity grid is to deliver electricity to you. But now everybody can play a role, and they can contribute in the system. So that's kind of changing the whole paradigm, and that's you asked me, other part of the question is how I started Vrinda. So yeah, I have a long journey, like 25 years now. This year I completed in energy, and I started in India. I worked for 12 years in energy sector in India in many capacities, and I came here almost half mark in North America. And what I have seen is that last 4 years we are like really transforming the energy sector, and I was very keen in seeing what will happen if the utilities are not going to sell electricity in the future. What is the future of electricity companies? And that's kind of fascinated. So I founded this company, and what we do is that we work with utilities, governments, regulators, and whosoever is interested in this to create new business models, so that if in like 10, 20, 30 years from now, if utilities are not there just to sell electricity, what else they will be doing?
Before I go to Rajiv, I have one more question on that, because utility, in the Indian context particularly, the state electricity boards used to be the supplier of, and they were very inefficient, run in a highly unprofessional way. It was something like sarkari kaam hai, electricity ban gaya, thoda supply ho gaya, where are the gaps, where are the inefficiencies? Right. Nobody paid attention to that. And that was one of the major problems when the first time in 1991 when the government started the public sector, private sector participation for construction of power plants in India. So the issue there was that you are producing, but who is distributing? And at the distribution level, the state electricity boards did not have the ability to deliver. Your experience about that, and also a question about nuclear power. India has 22 nuclear power plants. Post Japan tsunami, when the nuclear power reactor failed, there was a virtual cry in the world, let's do away with nuclear. But I'm a great fan of nuclear energy because it's very clean. Safety standards have gone up dramatically. It's like a road accident kills 1, but the plane crash kills 500, doesn't mean you stop flying. So the question of, the standards of air safety has gone so much. What is the issue in relation to that, your experience in terms of both?
In terms of nuclear?
Yeah, nuclear as well as the experience of India in terms of setting joint ventures with public-private participation, how that it didn't work so well.
It didn't work so well, in part because the government wanted more perfection. They wanted to bring the tariff rates really low. But you have to incentivize investors to invest. So if you bring the tariff rates low and then say, oh, by the way, and let's make it lower, and let's make it lower, at some point the incentives are not enough for enough people to invest. There will always be some investors at every level. So I think the incentives have to be broadened for the private sector to come into play. If that means higher tariffs, so be it. Because there is no electricity which is more expensive than no electricity. And India is going to need more and more of electricity. So that's one. On nuclear, well, I have a mixed feeling about nuclear. I think nuclear is great, as you say. It produces a lot of power. It is clean. It's efficient. But safety standards are important. One nuclear accident can cause havoc. So it's not like one plane crash. So I would like to see what has been done on the safety standards in India before I advocate more nuclear.
Whatever in the Indian context, considering that India is becoming the 4th or 5th largest economy in the world, which has massive demographic dividend advantage. We need people, we need economic growth. And we are the only country where we used to have a power cut.
Right.
Right? It's a matter of history now, I believe. So the question
Hopefully.
is, what is the true story on that front?
See, the true story is that definitely nuclear is promising. You know, for a country like India, there is no denying. And as Rajiv ji said, the safety is the biggest concern, but also there is a fundamental shift because now you can produce electricity in a very distributed manner. You are seeing a lot of efficiency. The nuclear or any base load power plant, we call them, like the one which can run 24/7, those power plants are less and less required. So at one end it's kind of safety issue, it's a cost issue, but also the thing is operation issue, like how you are going to sustain running the plant. So what is happening that though it's a very cool technology, but the way the grid is changing, way the preference of customers changing, it is becoming very difficult for you to pan out like a storage, like a nuclear power plant nowadays. So that is a phenomena which we have seen across the board, like in the world, like India. In fact, it's very interesting because we talk about power shortage, power cuts, but you know, Indian power plants, they operate at 56% load factor. So you would be very surprised why, you know, 56 load percent. And the reason for that is twofold. One is we have need, but we need the grid to be kind of, you know, more interconnected, but also you need to understand the supply curve, like in a sense how people use electricity. It's not like 24/7 people have some part you have demand, some time you don't have demand, and you need resources which can be very flexible. And for a nuclear plant, once it's operating, you cannot keep on varying. So you need to curtail some other resource in order for nuclear to run. And it's a universal problem. In California, for example, we have this problem in markets where cost of electricity is zero in the middle of the day. So nothing can pan out. Nobody can generate in the market. And same thing happens in India in some periods of time because, and as to your point, like when people want tariff and they want, you know, fix, like everybody wants to recover their cost, it becomes a big problem for a country like India. So nuclear, I would come back and say that it's a cool technology. It's you know, promising for India, but it's just that the way the grid is changing. I don't know how much you will be able to keep the nuclear plants in money. You know, you can keep the.
You mean to say nuclear plants will not be so much of a profit-making entities?
Correct.
Now, if the nuclear power plants are not going to make profit, does the solar energy, other alter wind power energy, do they have the same factor of making money? Rajiv, your thought before we go on the break.
I think India needs to look at more hydro also. It needs to look at solar. And nuclear, the issues are two. One is it needs a heavy investment. So to your point, you know, will you be able to sustain that level of investment? Mm-hmm. And the second is the safety issue. You know, India is not France, respectfully. I haven't compared the standards of safety in India to those in France. I would be very happy to be wrong, but I think they still need a little more of looking into.
My point was not to say that nuclear is superior to others.
No, it is very clean. I agree with you.
Indian nuclear power plants have had no accident.
Yeah, that's the point.
Despite the inefficiency or the cultural element that you may talk about. We will take a short break. We will take a short break and we will come back soon after these commercial messages. Welcome back. We were talking about energy, and now we will talk about the scope, what business model needs to follow, what processes need to be put in place for the alternate energy model to succeed in India. I believe 27% of India's energy needs are supplied by thermal. India is the 5th largest in wind power. I do not know what's the rank it is on the solar power part of it. So my question to you as a learned professional in this field is, what business model, what must happen, what processes need to be installed to make this alternate energy, India becoming an energy independent country? Because energy is a security issue for every country. From that point of view, your thoughts on that?
Right. So I think in the previous segment you talked about, electricity boards and India's, kind of all the inefficiencies. The point really is India need to understand, if they want energy for everybody and they want low cost energy, then there are technologies available, they need to make it available. I will give you like an example. For India, it's almost like, when you have these drugs which you say that these are life-saving drugs and you subsidize them, and you don't charge the taxes and duties on them. Solar is like that for India. Means you need it, is abundant supply. You don't need to worry about electricity board and who is going to suffer the loss. You have basically essential requirement in an energy mix to have solar. Now the problem with, as we see, is that we have electricity board which supply the electricity. They are forced to buy electricity from suppliers at whatever rate, and then they have to supply a discount. The model of somebody buying and selling to the end customer, as opposed to the model where customer can choose and they can decide, you can just provide them the technology in access, can be a very effective way of dealing with this situation. So what I'm saying is that the duties on the solar panels, India always gets into this. Like, I just want to give you, in the latest bid in India, the cost of solar came to roughly 3 cents. I do a lot of projects in US, we are struggling to get like 5 cents with solar and like little bit storage. So India got 3 cents, so you should be happy. But then the power minister of India came and said, South Bank is cartelizing. They have cartelized to quote a rate which because of that it's coming to 3.26 cents, okay, instead of 3 cents. So he rejected all the bids. Now I'm not an expert and I don't want to get into the thing that whether they cartelize or not, but 3 cents of electricity is cheapest anywhere, like 3 and 3.2 is rounding error. But we have made such a thing. So the point is, you have to allow these technologies to come and you have to make it like conditions. And the business model, in my view, is that you have to get rid of electricity boards doing these things. So
So the question here is a very important question.
Right.
The power minister rejected the bids which were because it was 3.26 and not 3.
Yes.
And how long ago it was, and what
last week actually, that's what.
Last week actually. Yes. So the question here is, Rajiv, I will come to you, sorry to interrupt, but that's a very important point. Cost and price. Somehow along the line in India, you always hear, how much does it cost? And that is something which bothers me. Because cost and price, they're two different things. Cost it doesn't cost you anything if you don't do that. But the price that you are going to pay and its impact on the environment, economic environment, political environment, and everything that goes with it is important. If not doing something, that itself is a cost to the country, cost to the people. So my experience on the cost and price is a constant battle in India when I take the business delegations. What is your thing? And I have discussed this with CEOs of companies. The cost really is about not doing something. And that delay that you could have done, the realization of value is lost.
I think that's exactly was my point, and I think that's the point you made. You can get too fixated on the point whether it's 3 cents or it's 3.26 cents and lose the big picture, which is that not having it is a huge cost to the economy. The Indian economy grows, it's the fastest growing economy, it grows at 7.2, 7.4, whatever. Frankly, it needs to grow at 17 for the country to get ahead. And there are parts of India that do that. The new state of, which has got Telangana is at 17, 18. Now you'll say that's got Hyderabad. Okay, but Andhra Pradesh is at 10. Gujarat is at 10. So there's no reason why the average is 7.4. And it is this attitude that keeps the country behind. They get so lost in the fact that it's 3.26 and not 3, and whether somebody's cartelizing or not cartelizing, who cares? We need electricity, and we need it now, and we need it today. And that's a point that's completely lost. And the country needs it at a rapid pace because it cannot industrialize, it cannot have information technology, it cannot have anything without more and more electricity. And you don't have with respect to you don't have the kind of resources to build big nuclear power plants. They may or may not be profitable. Yes, there's been no accident, but that's only because nuclear energy is relatively new in India by comparison to the rest of the world. Nobody has tested the safety standards. And there are other impediments. To build a nuclear power plant takes 10 years because
we are past the nuclear power plant.
What I'm saying is that
the point which I was trying to make is, you very rightly said, the electricity is required now and this moment.
Whether it's whether it's 3 cents, 3.25 cents, 3.5 cents, within some limit, it doesn't matter what it costs. It matters greatly that it is not the capacity is not being installed now and here and today.
Yeah,
that's my point.
So I would just want to put like this in perspective. So last week and this week, Indian power prices have shot up to 25 cents per kilowatt hour. That's the spot market price of energy in if you want to buy 1 kilowatt hour in a spot market in India. So that's 25 cents. Now I want to put in perspective, we are fighting for 3 cents or 3.2 cents, where the price of electricity is at 25 cents in India from the market.
Why does that happen? Is it
demand?
It is lack of understanding, or is it bureaucracy, or is it not understanding the energy security issues, or is it just because that's the way we are?
So I think what is happening in India, in my view, is that Prime Minister Modi, he has a vision. He's a vision guy, like you can think about big vision. But then vision need to come with competency of people doing the stuff. So what is happening, that he made a big saying that solar is the future, we need to do it. That's his job, as a statesman, kind of to lay out this kind of foundation. But then the people come and then there are vested interests. So people are saying that, oh, if you do solar, what will happen to the coal plants? What will happen to the thing? I don't care, because in India we have to get as much as energy in the hands of people, and we have to get out of the business because we can never be supplied.
When you say we have to get out of the business, you're talking to the government.
Yeah.
We're talking about government getting out of business.
Correct.
And that's the bigger problem. We will talk about that after this short break, because that's a very important part, government and business. We'll get back to you soon after these breaks. In our previous segment, we were talking about how India will cope up with the expertise, with the knowledge, and the capacity for energy distribution, consumption, and production. India has severe shortage of skilled labor, qualified labor, employable labor, especially in technology domain. Several years ago, a phrase was coined, the phrase of demographic dividend. India is the biggest beneficiary of demographic dividend. You all have the statistics for that. I don't want to take time on that. But the point which I'm trying to say is that India needs more than 120,000 people to send a man in space. Where are those space engineers going to come from? Where are the technicians going to come from? For that purpose, India has to begin working very aggressively towards reaping the advantages of demographic dividend before it becomes a demographic burden. I'm told that the median age of Indians age was 27.9 years. China has 35, Japan has 47. So the question here is, before our demographic dividend becomes a demographic burden, what policies India needs to take into account for a skill development and channeling this entire energy of the youth towards productive employment? This has very important implication, because the young people getting employed creates a bigger employment pool, bigger income pool, bigger savings pool, and it also removes the dependency ratios of people. So talking about that skill part of it, which is one of my key areas of desire, that India becomes a skilled country, and based on a personal experience of mine, Rajiv, would you like to take a shot at that?
I think not enough is being done to develop the skills. I think a lot more needs to be done to develop the skills. I think we need to quadruple the vocational skills. We need to quadruple the engineering schools. We need to quadruple the medical schools. We have a good talent pool, but the talent pool has to be developed. And more has to be spent on education, more has to be spent on skills, and more has to be spent on the right amount of skills, the right skills for the persons, as opposed to just getting a liberal arts majors. Not that I've got anything against them, but you need to develop skills, because some of us grew up a little before the phrase demographic dividend. We grew up with the theory of the Malthusian theory. When you have too many mouths, you'll have chaos. And history is, the verdict in history is not out yet whether we're going to have a Malthusian problem or a demographic dividend, in my opinion. But clearly, if we don't do anything about it, we're going to have a Malthusian problem. These young people who are very energetic, who will be very frustrated because they are not getting the right opportunities in life, because their talent is not being used, because their brain power is not being used, will become destructive elements of society. You see Punjab, my home state, it has a huge drug problem. And part of that is there is not enough productive channels to have productive things for the young people to do, to think creatively, to build their own companies. I think Prime Minister Modi has done a good job in bringing enterprise into India, in encouraging startups. But I think we need about 10 times that effort. And we need to develop the skills to build the entrepreneurial skill, which will lead into the entrepreneurial skills. Means people have to have, in order for people to have great ideas and to build great companies, we need also to give them the skills that would do that, that will enable them to do that. So skills it's all about skills. And if India fails, if the leadership of India today fails, then history will not judge them correctly. The history will not judge them, will judge them harshly for their failure. And at this point, what's being done is great, but it has to be multiplied by 10. Would you agree before anything can happen?
So Navneet, you can definitely jump into that,
yes.
Primarily because you are one of the engineers who are kind of needed in the country, but you have migrated to United States. And there are many IIT geniuses who are here. Now the question here is, I don't believe in the concept of brain drain, because for every one coming here, there are 59 sitting back home. So I don't believe in the brain drain part of it. But what is your experience that you went as an IIT graduate in a very specific field, when you go back to India to talk about skill development, what's your experience about that?
I think before we were talking about this show, and I told you that and you said that India is a land of knowledge, right? We have this feeling that we have all the knowledge of Vedas and things like that, and that's what like our government in present, like they kind of all the time put people on steroids saying that, oh, we are the land of knowledge. In my opinion, the biggest challenge for India in skill development is, do they have ability to unlearn? Because I'll give you an example. If I tell you to go from A to D, and I tell you to go from A to B to C and then D, but there is a path to go from A to D, you can do this experiment. Most of the Indians will go from A to D. They will not go from B to C and then D. The thing is that information is available. We talked about technology, like in a fraction of a second people know what's going on. So information is there. Information has to be analyzed to get the knowledge, and knowledge has to be translated into skills, right? So part which is India is failing is that you got the information, you are not able to convert that into, like, because you don't have sufficient tool to analyze, and then you don't want to kind of certain prejudice that you don't want to follow, so you are not able to learn the right way. So I tell you, I was in India, I worked for 12 years and I had the same kind of view. I used to get a lot of people coming from UK and all, and we used to laugh saying that, oh, this guy, he's just telling me how to follow this process. I know this stuff very well. And when I talk to my friends in India, they always argue with me that we are different. We are different, we have to do differently, India is different. And I can tell you the difference is that we don't want to follow the process. And unless we follow the process and go to that kind of knowledge, we will not be able to successful. You touched upon making the, why we don't have a mega company in the world, why India didn't create, like we don't, because we don't follow process. And knowledge and process goes hand in hand. So I think India's challenge is that first we need to tell ourselves that we don't know, we think that we know, but we don't know, and we need to learn in the right way.
We agree on that totally, for the simple reason that, just knowing something is not enough. If you are not able to translate it into a productive outcome, then that knowledge is wasted. For example, I don't need to read about how to fly a plane. It is a wasted knowledge for me. So to say that I know how to fly a plane, it doesn't matter. But that is the phrase which I want to say, that majority of the people suffer from what I choose to call severe disease called educated incapacity. हम सब जानते हैं लेकिन हम करना कुछ नहीं जानते हैं. Knowledge हमारे पास है लेकिन हम उसको translate नहीं कर सकते हैं. And that's the biggest challenge in India. In my work, when I go to India, one of the things which I hear, I know this. I don't need to learn that. But one of the very important things which Navneet ji mentioned about is that how to unlearn first. And how to unlearn first is to acknowledge that I don't know something. That's the reason why the West has advanced so much, and we, despite all the Vedic knowledge, have not been able to make the impact that is required. In the next segment, after this short break, we will talk about a very important topic that is very close to all our hearts. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In this segment, we are going to talk about India's liberalization story that started in 1991. Since then, India has made strides, but it has been very slow and steady, has been uncertain at times. Fast forward to 2014. We have a very interesting scenario that we have a new Prime Minister in 2014 who gives a clarion call for Make in India. Now, Make in India is a very powerful statement in its own way, because this is something correlates to Prime Minister Nehru's statement, export or perish. Now, if we had adopted very consciously the philosophy of export, we would have become a remarkably wonderful country, because to become an export-oriented country, we would have had to become efficient, we would have had to recognize quality, we would have become international traders, we would have become international player. International trade gives you voice in the global affairs. In 2016, United States had a new president who gave the clarion call of America first. So now we are in a very interesting situation between the United States and India, that both the leaders of these countries are tilted right of center. One very clearly, one not so clearly, but obviously. So the point which I am trying to make is that do these objectives, do these countries, India and United States, have a commonality of purpose to create a scenario in which both countries can take advantage of each other? Rajiv, you have been in this business for a long time, and so have I. We have been champions of the India liberalization story. So before I jump into with my thoughts, and I can keep talking for hours on this, I'd like to hear from you what you think about where does the commonality between America First and Make in India come together?
Well, I think both the leaders are saying the same thing, which is there's not enough manufacturing being done in the home country. In case of United States, over time it has ceded manufacturing to China. In case of India, we have said we don't need to be a manufacturing power. We are going into the services industry. We don't have the infrastructure to do manufacturing. But the United States and India are natural allies. They They are natural allies because if you look at 2050 and you look at all the reports leading to that, the prediction is that it'll be China, United States, and India, probably in that order. Obviously, United States does not like that idea. So its natural enemy, not enemy in the sense of being an enemy of war, it's a natural competitor, is a better word, is China. So its natural alliance, ally, is India. And people talk about if only China and India would get together, what a great Asian power they would be. Well, they're not getting together. They haven't gotten together since Nehru's time. And there is nothing in the Chinese leadership that shows that they want India as an ally. There's almost, I would say, to the point of disdain for India in Chinese leadership. So India's natural business ally is United States. It is, if United States and India would get together, what a great power it would be. And I am very hopeful that between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, that would happen. It could happen in the form of a treaty. Maybe it could be announced on January 26th, who knows? But it is drifting in that direction. And there would have to be concessions made by India. They cannot charge outrageous duties on goods that they've been doing. They cannot sell all their software services and close other service sectors to the United States. But every time India has opened up, it's actually done better since 1991. So the more you open up the country, the more the people feel challenged, the better they seem to do. So I am very hopeful that this is all going in a very positive direction. We are going to see the golden age of relations between the United States and India, which people like you and I have worked so hard to get done, because the time is right for something like that to happen. And this partnership, it's not the look east policy that India needs to abolish, it is the look west policy. And this would lead to a greater specialization where everybody produces what they produce best and everybody sells to the other what they produce in a sort of a tariff-free manner, even with non-tariff barriers. If India can make generic medicine or even branded medicine and deal with the healthcare costs of the United States, why should it not do that? And if United States can produce certain things, can produce better motorcycles and give it to the young Indian youth, why should the Indian youth have to pay 300% duty on those?
You are so right about that, because the collaboration, the opportunities for collaboration, there are two areas, in my opinion, where India and US have a direct fit is US technology and know-how, process for building infrastructure in India, and the energy part of it. US-India trade has grown from $46 billion to $120 billion in the last decade. But remember, at the GDP levels, China is 3 times more than that. Even Korea, which has much lower GDP than us, has 2 times more trade with the United States. The question is, trade adds power to your ability to negotiate and to make a deal. If you do not do trade, if you do not manufacture something, your ability to negotiate decreases to that extent. To that end, the element of politics also comes in, because we are wedded to the socialist idea. We are emerging out of it, but what you have given once, it is very difficult to take back. So we are wedded to the socialist ideology. Our poverty criterion remains, poverty elimination remains the same, although India has brought many people above the poverty line in the last couple of years. The point is that India-US has huge potential. And to talk about the Chinese part of it, and I would like to solicit your opinion on that, Navneet ji, is that if you want, China is a bully, and you said it very correctly. There is nothing that will bring India and China together as a political entity, because हिंदी में कहना कहते हैं ना कि एक म्यान में दो तलवार नहीं रह सकती हैं. So India, China can accept Japan as an alternate economic power in Asia, because Japan is very small. But China cannot accept India as another superpower within the same zone. So for India to shrug off the Chinese bullying that it does from time to time, it has to become a trade power. India needs to enter into a trade agreement with the United States on a standalone basis. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I would kind of start with, I think it's a little bleak outlook, because we are retreating from globalization in the world. That's like something happening. And when that phenomenon, so India, US, everybody got a lot of benefit of globalization, right? The cost came down, people get access, you said people came out of the poverty. That's because of globalization. Now the model is shifting. The India has like some kind of a Cinderella syndrome, in my view, that where when the time was globalization, India didn't diversify and build those capabilities. So the time now is when the globalization, what you can offer. When you say make in India, what you can make in India, what world wants. You can make it India for Indian consumption, but that's not something which can, get you the money to kind of support all your stuff. And then, China, I think, I feel very, confused, like what is India's stand? So today we have Russian president there, and India is signing a defense deal which will bring Americans, like, put a sanction on India. So India tried to work with Russia, China, like sometime US. India is confused. You need to take a position. As you rightly said, if in the future, if you believe that it is going to be the order of China, US and India, so India, US together have to be bigger than China to take on. And if that's true, then India should align with US. But Indian leaders are confused. They try to align with Russia. They try to think that, we can make everybody happy. We want to make this kutum kind of, whatever you call it, big kutum, like it's not going to happen. You need to work with, you have to watch out for your interest, and you have to take a position. You will lose, certainly. You will have problem with China, right? You will have problem with China, you will have problem with Russia, but then you have to kind of take a position. Now you say, I have historical relationship and I'm going to do that. It's not going to serve. So that is like on the global. On the local, I am like wondering what India can offer, because you have no efficient institutions, your labor laws are archaic, you cannot produce, right? Quality is an issue, cost is an issue. So I'm really worried about India. I sit here and, like a lot of people think that, oh, you sitting in US, you feel bad about India. I'm worried about India. I love the country where I come from. The problem is like how we are going to take this challenge. If globalization die tomorrow, India has like everything. India is not like able to produce anything.
I think you have hit upon a very important point about the globalization and Indian policy and the ambivalence in the political atmosphere, whether we choose America or Russia. This is the vestige, a very terrible legacy of non-alignment, where India, Egypt, and Yugoslavia formed a non-aligned movement. It was a very euphoric idea post-Second World War, when the communist bloc and the Western bloc, NATO and other things came about. The battle was between capitalism and communism. India, Yugoslavia and Egypt formed non-aligned movement. We will not be aligned with anybody, but that was such an impractical idea. Deep down, you derive your non-aligned strength, as I was talking to you earlier on, if you have something to offer. And to take your point, India had nothing to offer at that point in time, beaten back because of the years and years of imperial legacy. We had no economic strength, we had no political clout. On the contrary, by referring Kashmir issue to United Nations, India made itself subservient to the decisions taken by those very people who had ruled India for all that while. So this is the important part which I feel that non-aligned movement has weakened India very badly. To get rid of that shackle, and that became geopolitical challenge for India, whether we have to be with the US or Russia. Incidentally, it so happened because India adopted the Mahalanobis model and the Russian model of democratic socialism, we became kind of leaning on the Russian model, which distanced us from the United States. There is a perpetual element of distrust between India and the US. Now, that is something with the US as a bigger power. In my opinion, United States needs to take a definite step to befriend India, to assure India, because it's a democracy. India's frustration with China is globally known. The point which I'm trying to make here is India has to take a political shift now. And political shift has to be driven by not abandoning your old friends, but realigning your new strategies to go forward. And that's the important part, because if you want to shrug off China, if you want to be a major player, you have to be a big trade partner. You have to be a big economic giant. For that, it's like losing weight. Very easy to put on weight, very difficult to lose one. So the point of the matter, and I've been part of that exercise, I can tell you with confidence. Point of the exercise is that if you want to become, you have to abandon something. You have to undo the things that you have done in the past. And one of them is the legacy of non-aligned movement. You have to choose your friends. Egypt is gone, so is Yugoslavia. The country doesn't exist anymore. So the question is, does non-alignment mean anything? Now we will take up one very important human relations challenge in India. India has 1.3 billion people now. India will have 500 million people in the middle class in another 10 years' time. India is a huge market for the global supply of goods and services for the United States. The important point here is, do we in the country have a culture of performance? We have adopted a reservation-based culture. We need to move from reservation-based culture to performance-based culture, taking sports, the joy of victory that India has seen in the sporting field in India, because all that mattered was performance. What does India need to do? I mean, IIT is one classic example. There were 5, now there are 100. Where are the teachers to teach? What will the cultural impact be? Will those, now we are creating another caste factor here now, unfortunately. The elite 5 will become Brahmins and the remaining 100 will become not so Brahmins. Mm-hmm. How do you think the IITians, in my opinion, have failed to convey the message to the previous government that creating 100 IITs doesn't solve the problem?
Right.
There are not 100 Harvards, there are not 50 Yales, and there are not 30 Oxfords. Mm-hmm. That is one.
Right.
Why did we allow that to happen? And what must we do now to make sure that going forward Indians begin to accept performance-based culture? All governments are asking, even private sector must do reservation. They have no concept of return on equity or efficiency of capital.
Right.
That's the point. How does that get conveyed?
I think in my view, most important is governments need to get out of the business and people need to understand that government doesn't provide. Means government is there to facilitate. So government thought that we can solve the problem by creating IITs. And you said it's classically wrong, because there was a reason why we had 3,000 people. They used to be brilliant. There is rigor. Now the quality of IIT output is kind of declining. The thing is that let people, if people have certain thing, they think that government provide, we will get it, from government. They are not doing it all the time. In US, what is the difference? You are told that government will not be there. You are on your own. You do. And if you are dying, then we'll come and help you. So I think that shift will help India, but it is, it's a political challenge. Somebody can stand up and say, we don't provide, you have to figure out, and we are there to help you. It's a very, very big, if you're really honest as a politician, that's what you would be saying to people.
Rajiv, do you think India will ever accept performance-based culture in corporates and elsewhere? For that, in my opinion, sports is a key factor to happen. What do you think?
I think
we have a short 1 minute.
I think if they don't accept it, they are dead as a country. So it's accept it or perish. That's the short answer. On education, I think what India does need to do is allow foreign universities to come in. And I don't know why they've been stopping them from doing that. India needs to be educated. The Indians need to be educated. The young Indian needs to be educated. And the more universities that come in, the better it is. And the more international standards that come in, the better it is. So why it's not happened for all this time is...
I think it all relates, it's criminal. I mean, it relates to the challenge. I mean, I know that American universities have been operating in Beirut, in Middle East, and they have opened campuses over there, and to educate people, I mean, which is very important. If education is a criterion, and we Indians focus so much on education as a policy, and we care for children to get good quality education, why must government not allow premier institutions to cater to the needs of the people, to create and to lower the gap between the top level institution and second tier institution?
I think the reason is that we believe that nobody can teach us.
Well, this has been a very invigorating conversation. I enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Rajiv.
Thank you
and
for having us.
for coming today.
Yeah,
and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for joining us today. Have a great weekend.